Is this like, we had kind of those three big schemes that happened. Is this
Yeah.
the last one that's getting wrapped up?
I guess you could say that. The other two are definitely wrapped up. Nadel's dead, Arthur Nadel. He was the biggest. Bo Diamond is doing his time. And Marion Morgan and John Morgan are doing their time. And this was their accomplice in Denmark, who was being tried in Danish court. He's an attorney, and he was accused of money laundering and fraud.
Now, what makes the Morgan case unique compared to these other Ponzi schemes?
Well, it was audacious. They were promising investors the moon, 200 to 300% on their money in 2 to 3 months. The problem was they never got their money back. Once the Morgans got a hold of the investors' money, they would wire it to Denmark, where it was supposedly sitting in some safe escrow account. And then, according to the US documents, their attorney, Eli Hecksher, would wire it back to the Morgans to another corporate account, and they would spend it. It was just audacious, you know, take the money and spend it.
Well, we can see that here. I mean, was
Yeah.
this just, you know, they were living in excess on other people's money?
Basically, yeah, they had this, the scheme was ridiculous on the face of it. They were saying there were these trade banks and that somehow they could do these interbank transfers that would generate huge returns for investors. But these trade banks don't even exist. And at the same time they were promising that your money would be safe. It would be in this escrow account in Denmark, held in one of Denmark's largest banks. Well, you can't have your money sitting safely in an escrow account at the same time that it's earning 200% in 2 months. It just doesn't happen in the real world. But people wanted to believe, and some very nice people were taken by this. I know several of them and have stayed in touch with them. A pig farmer from Colorado named John Long, a speech pathologist from Southern California named Jackie Kreitzman, a woman in southern Georgia whose father got taken for his life savings and then died, leaving her and her mother basically without the support they expected.
Now, is that why we saw such a heavy sentence for Marion?
John got a more normal sentence. He did a plea deal and he got about 10 years. And he'll be out in 2018. Marion chose to go to trial. It wasn't just that she went to trial, she tried to take the stand in her own defense at this jury trial. And the judge kept catching her in statements that just seemed ludicrous on the face of it. Like if she weren't in jail here, she could give everybody their money back right away. The jury wasn't buying it, the judge wasn't buying it, and she got the book thrown at her. 35 years was the initial sentence, later cut to 33 and a half years because she tried an appeal, and on the appeal, the judge had to throw out one of the aggravating factors, I guess you could call it.
Is that an abnormal sentence to get that high of a sentence?
It's one of the highest sentences that we've seen in this country for a Ponzi scheme. Not the highest, but it's one of the highest. And considering the size of the scheme was 28 million, there were many that were much larger. But the story, it was one of those stories they kept on giving because the Morgans, all they faced was a civil suit in federal court at first. An SEC civil suit. You must have violated some SEC laws, so we're going to check up on that. But then, when they were supposed to show up in court in Tampa for the civil suit, they fled the country. They got on a plane in Miami, flew to Europe, and then flew to Sri Lanka. And when they tried to check in with their passports in Sri Lanka, they were grabbed by the local authorities, who held them on nebulous charges until the United States could extradite them.
So this is pretty far-reaching.
Yeah, I mean, that made the story fun for a reporter. I mean, it was never fun for the victims, don't get me wrong, and I do sympathize with them. But from a reporter's point of view, it was the gift that kept on giving. Just because there's like, what are they going to do next? You know, Marion, even after she was on the lam in Europe, she was writing letters to investors, emails, saying, they'll never catch us. Don't worry, your money's safe and we'll get it back to you soon, someday, we promise. They'll never catch us over here. They can't touch us. And it was like, all that came up in court. It all worked against her. And as a result, she got one of the longer sentences ever for a Ponzi of this size.